Welcome to Birds Spray Sports, where we weekly cover Ravens and Orioles news. We're your hosts, TJ and Jared. And in this video, we're going to be wrapping up the preseason and also talking about the final 53-man roster, as well as our practice squad. This is a very exciting time of the year. It's officially the first week of football now. We got the Eagles game on, this upcoming Thursday, and then, we got, the step one of our Super Bowl quest this year, this upcoming Sunday, September 7th. Jared's going to be here. Gonna have some wings, some food. He's gonna eat everything from us. I'm just playing.
Shut up,
But
bro. You can eat all the cupcakes I'm gonna bring. I ain't gonna get a chance
damn
to get
right,
one. I ain't get a
damn
chance to
right.
get one. I'm gonna just go in the kitchen. You can vacuum it up.
But anyway, getting into this preseason game, the Ravens sure did eat up the Commanders, and the final score being 30-3. Everybody got a chance to shine in this game. Especially the defense. The defense was locked down. But before I get to that, let me get to the offense. We're going to get to Devin Leary, who is not on the team anymore, but he went 17 to 23, 71 yards. He didn't really have to do too much because the run game, was really working for us early on. We had like a this game actually came on when I was at work, but we had like a 10 or 11 play drive where all we did was basically run the ball down the field. And drives like that, especially with Rasheen Ali, who's officially going to be our fourth running back on the roster. You want to see that from him, especially if we need to put him in games, if, we want to give Derek or Justice or even Keaton a breather. We definitely want to see that from Ali, just the type of physicality when it comes to his running and, the motor he has. So I would say, Ali definitely did good. Cooper Rush was 5 for 5, 59 yards. Neither QBs had any touchdown passes, but Cooper Rush definitely was more efficient than Leary. Not just in this game, but throughout the entire preseason. They both kind of had an off first game against the Colts, but against the Cowboys and against the Commanders, overall Cooper Rush just had a better overall body of work. And I'm glad that even though it was a no-brainer decision, I'm glad that the Ravens let go of Devin Leary because that was a roster spot that was being taken by someone who's just a mid player. Um, but besides Rasheen Ali, Dearness Johnson had 17 carries for 45 yards and a touchdown. He has 2.6 yards per carry, which is awful, but he actually played pretty well, and the Ravens did retain him on the practice squad, I believe, but that's news for later. Um, Miles Gaskin had 5 carries for 7 yards, and LeJontay Wester had 1 carry for 5 yards. And then overall with receiving, it wasn't really too much. LeJontay had a couple of receptions for 28 yards. Scotty Washington had 4 receptions for 20 yards. And, that's about it. Not too much on the receiving and just a very dominant running and defensive game. And, I want to pass, did you see any defensive plays, you want to highlight in this game?
Yeah, I mean the defense. I mean there really is no one play to highlight. I mean there's the defense. No matter who was out there, was really flying around. I mean obviously the pick six from I believe it was Keon Martin who got that pick six. Just incredible ball skills from him, and he's shown that over the last 2 weeks in Dallas and in Washington now. You know, Overall, I think that just the defense just looks fast. They look fast. They look physical. Like they look locked in. No matter who was out there, they look locked in. And that was kind of the big concern last year. Even with the starters in there, how many guys just looked like they were off page or off script, and how many guys just looked lost out there? Brandon Stevens, Marcus Williams, Eddie Jackson, those three in particular. Even Trent Simpson, they guys look lost, but Trent Simpson looked great this postseason. Preseason. I'm sorry. He looked great. I think he caused a fumble. I think he also influenced the pick. In this Commanders game. So he provided. Not even just good tackling or good coverage. He caused some possible game changing plays. And I mean we saw that potential. Up in Kansas City last year. He had that knockdown from Mahomes on third down that allowed us to get the ball back and drive to tie the game or take the lead, or win the game. Really, I should say. But Isaiah Likely's foot, toe was out of bounds. But we hadn't really seen that from Trenton Simpson, throughout the season. But he looked faster. He looked like a little bit more ready, more prepared, I guess you could say, out there. And He was really impressive. What is the guy's name? Aeneas Peebles.
And
Or
yes,
whatever they
Peoples,
call him.
yep.
I think they call him Fub or something like that.
Fub
Yeah, he
Peoples.
he looked great as well. He was getting in the backfield a little bit as well. So, that's great to see. From that interior pressure, if we can get guys like Matabike, Travis Jones, Peebles to create or generate interior pressure, that's going to be so important for us throughout the season. And continue that depth of guys staying healthy as well. I mean, if we can sub out Jones for Peebles or Peebles for Jones or give Namdi a rest for a second, just stuff like that to keep guys fresh instead of having them play 100% of the snaps. That's going to be important. So I think no matter what, this defense was flying. This defense looked, like they were killer out there, and I can't wait to see what the starters do out there, man. If the backups can go out there and look like they can compete in the NFL like that, and granted, they're facing backups, but that's what you want them to do when they're facing backups. You want them to look dominant. You want them to look prepared. You want them to look, killer like how they looked out there, and they looked great. So I keep reiterating this, but I can't wait to see like our main offense. I mean our main defense out there. I'm sorry, you know, um, going flying around. If these guys have killer instincts, imagine what our starters are gonna have out there. And I kind of talk about the offense a little bit. I know you didn't ask me about that, but yeah, the offense. Obviously, they flowed. Heavily on the running game, like you had mentioned. Not a lot of big plays offensively when it comes to the passing game, but you know, um, nothing really stood out to me. Obviously Ali looked pretty good. He looked really good actually. He caught a pass. I think he caught a few passes, if I'm not mistaken. And there was good bounce back from last week after happened the dropped interception. So shout out to him. I know the offensive line. They looked pretty good. Especially in the running game. So that's exciting to see. Hopefully we have some good depth this year. On offensive line in case 77 doesn't want to block. Speaking of that, have you seen the picture Lamar posted on his story where he has Daniel Falele in it? He tagged him in it.
Yeah, I saw that.
People were flaming Falele because they said in the picture he has his eyes closed, and people were like, "Yeah, of course he can't block. He has his eyes damn freaking closed. Obviously that picture was probably taken mid blank or whatever. But whatever. But you know, um, good running back depth. Kind of surprised they kept all that running back depth over some guys over the cornerback room, but we'll get to that when we get to the 53-man roster. But just a bludgeoning in Washington. To be honest, what was the
Yeah,
score again? It was like
it was
30 something,
33.
33 to what?
32-3.
32-3. Yeah, okay. So yeah, just the bludgeoning. It was never close and it never was going to be close, but just last tangent before I hand it back to you. Yeah, look, I offer a lot of respect to players. I understand that it's hard out there to be an
Yeah.
NFL quarterback, man. But I'm glad we got rid of Leary, man. I mean,
Oh yeah.
he's
Get him out
just
of here.
look. I hope that maybe he can find something somewhere else as a backup job. He could become a journeyman or whatever. But if your team picks up Devin Leary and he has to start a game, then you might want to do something else with your Sunday. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Or he can go to law school like how Josh Rosen did.
Look,
But
I mean,
anyway,
go ahead and be successful. I mean, like,
yeah.
there's many ways for him to be successful. It doesn't have to be a journeyman or an NFL quarterback, whatever. He can go be a lawyer. The world needs lawyers. I mean, the world needs plumbers. The world.
Yeah.
No disrespect. Obviously, I hope he's successful. I never want a man to fail, but hopefully, you know, he finds something.
Yeah, hopefully he does. But we're also trying to find that Super Bowl this year. And
Yeah,
speaking of that, we've got the 53-man roster to do it. I believe it, you believe it, so let's get
I
into that.
gotta, I gotta share my screen with for that. But when
Let's
you're
go.
ready, when
Yeah,
you
let's
want ready
go.
now? All
Yeah,
right,
we're
bet.
ready now.
All right, bet. All right, so the 53-man roster of the 2025 season looks great. Obviously, your quarterbacks are going to be Lamar Jackson and Cooper Rush. The four running backs on the roster now will be Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, and Rasheen Ali. As I'm getting 1,000 ads here, everywhere. It's like I don't even care about most of this stuff. Anyways, fullback obviously Pat Ricard. Tight ends Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and Charlie Kolar. Those are probably gonna be three tight ends last time. This year.
Yeah.
Um, So offensive line, Ronnie Stanley, Tyler Linderbaum, Roger Rosengarten, Daniel Falele, Andrew Voorhees, those will be your starting five right there.
Hmm.
Ben Cleveland, Carson Vincent, Corey Bullock, and Joseph Noteboom. Very impressed with Vincent's tape. Kind of excited to maybe see possible Ronnie Stanley replacement in the future. If he can develop over the years. I thought he looked great this postseason. So, and a lot of people said the same thing as well. So, kind of excited to see him. The six wide receivers we're keeping on the rosters: Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins, Tylen Wallace. Excuse me. Devontae Walker and LeJohntay Wester. Obviously, Wester will primarily be on special teams, probably along with Wallace and Devontae Walker. The defensive line: Nnamdi Madubuike, Travis Jones, Broderick Washington, John Jenkins, and Aeneas Peebles, like we had mentioned earlier. Pretty good depth on the defensive line, I'll say that. Probably a little bit more than we had the past few seasons. The inside linebackers is getting to the exciting part.
Crazy.
Roquan Smith, Trent Simpson, Teddy Buchanan, Jake Hummel, and Jay Higgins the fourth. Congratulations for making the 53-man roster as an undrafted free agent. That's not even all, as you could probably notice already. But congratulations, he looked great this postseason. I mean, I keep seeing postseason. The great this
He's ready
preseason.
for the
Oh,
postseason
I was
already.
like, hopefully he's good the postseason. I mean, I'll take it. But anyways, he looked great in all three preseason games. Really rooting for him this year. Hopefully he continues to play in time this year. But outside linebackers, Kyle Van Noy, Odafe Owe, Mike Green, Tavius Robinson, and David Ajabo. Um, Cornerbacks, Marlon Humphrey, Jair Alexander, Nate Wiggins, Chidobe Awuzie, TJ Tampa, and another undrafted, oh, I'm sorry, TJ Tampa Jr. And another undrafted free agent. Congratulations to Keon Martin. He did, again, another one that did spectacular this preseason. I'm so happy he made the roster. He's going to be a baller for us. I don't know how much playing time he's going to get, but hopefully when he's out there, he continues to make plays like how he did all preseason. Congratulations to Keon Martin again. And
Mm.
our safeties, Kyle Hamilton, Malachi Starks, Sanusi Kane, and the third undrafted free agent, Ruben Lowry. Congratulations. That's three. That's crazy. Three undrafted free agents this year. That's crazy. I think that continues the streak for undrafted free agents making the three roster. I don't know how many years it is at this point. It's probably their whole existence since the Ravens love the draft, but congratulations to Ruben Lowry. Another one, guy that may be considered undersized, but goes out there and balls out no matter what. A guy, who's in front of him. So congratulations to Ruben Lowry. I know Keon Martin's dad. I think it was Higgins' dad that was on Twitter that was like so happy about it. So
Yeah.
congratulations to them and their families. They get to watch them play some ball on a championship level team. That's exciting. So, anyways, moving to special teams, kicker Tyler Loop, obviously punter Jordan Stout, and long snapper is Nick Moore. And injured reserve players they moved were Adisa Isaac. I believe he needed elbow surgery. Emory Jones, I believe he got shoulder surgery already. And Darius Washington, obviously, he tore his Achilles earlier this season. So, those are the guys that are going to be on the injured reserve to start the season. And I believe, before I pass it to TJ, just want to again, congratulations to everyone who made the 53-man roster, especially
Relation.
borderline guys. I know this is a big accomplishment for these guys. So for the guys who were borderline, could be cut, could be released, could be traded, whatever. So congratulations, and to everyone who got cut. Hopefully you can find a career here in the NFL, whether it's maybe on a practice squad at first, and build yourself back up next preseason. And any of the guys who got hurt this preseason, hopefully you get speedy recoveries, come back next season, fight for another starting job or have another shot at the 53-man roster, whether it's on this team or another one. So that's all I gotta say. I'm gonna pass it off to you. You have, I believe, the practice
Practice
squad
squad.
guys who got added this week.
Yes, sir. So, our practice squad consists of Tyler Huntley, which is great to see him back. I'm reading the Ravens Twitter graph right now. They have him as like a practice squad veteran in like parentheses. I don't know if that's like a special signing, thing they're doing or anything, or that's just what they
I
are.
think it is like there's something about it. I forgot, but
It is
I don't
okay.
know for a fact though.
Okay. And so they got Tyler Huntley. They have offensive tackle Gerard Christian Lightenhand.
Hmm.
I heard that the Ravens liked him a lot. They have DB Thomas Graham. They have Malik Ham on there, outside linebacker. They have DB Keandre Jackson. They kept Dearness Johnson. He's a practice squad veteran. Also with Keith Kirkwood, wide receiver. He's also a practice squad veteran. They have inside linebacker Chandler Martin. They have Anthony Miller, who's been
Yeah.
pretty solid for us, the past year. I think we got him in 2024.
You
You know,
started him in
he
the PlayStation, the
the Bills
postseason
game.
games.
Yeah, the
So
Bills game.
hold on. Before I say postseason for preseason and PlayStation for postseason. So what's wrong with me?
What you think about over there?
Are the right things?
We kept Anthony Miller. He's also a practice squad veteran. We have Zaire Mitchell Payton on our practice squad as well. He played at tight end. We have Basil Okoye, who's international practice squad signing. We have Jared Penning. We have DB Marquise Robinson. We have defensive end Kaimon Rucker.
Hmm.
We have our center Nick Samak. We have another running back Lucas Scott, and we also have defensive end Brent Urban. We brought him back as a practice squad veteran. So that's our practice squad for the year.
Yeah. So good depth.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously some guys that I feel like I can trust being called up, like Anthony Miller.
Oh yeah.
Use Huntley as well, but Brent Urban will probably be on this roster somehow. That I imagine he will be. I'm not sure, but I imagine he will be. But the depth we have on the defensive front is very impressive, and it could take us a long way.
Oh yeah. And there's definitely guys that we would have thought could get to the practice squad, like Jalen Armour Davis, who we let go.
Yeah.
Bo Braid, we let him go as well.
Yep.
I think we also there was another corner that I think we let go. His name's not really coming to my mind right now, but yeah, everybody was up in arms about Jalen Armour Davis. The Ravens have been very high on him since 2022 when they first drafted him, I believe. And, he just hasn't really been able to stay consistent when it comes to his health and, really his, game day performance. This off season, he's looked pretty well, but, he just hasn't, like I said, haven't been able to together a consistent body of work. So, hopefully with I believe he signed with the Titans. Hopefully with the Titans, he'll be able to, right the ship with his career. And Bo Braid, he went to the Giants, I know. So, wishing the best for those two. What were your thoughts about Jalen Armour Davis?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely shocked, that he got released. I kind of expected him to make the 53-man roster, for them to have a lot more cornerback depth than they wound up having. But you know, at the same token, I don't think you can let guys like Jay Higgins, I'm sorry, Ruben Lowry and Keel Martin go. Those are guys that, I don't think that you could have let go. And It's the unfortunate part of football now, where guys are getting cut. I mean, it's not as unfortunate for him because he found a job. He'll probably be, somewhat. I mean, I don't know the Titans' depth. I know they got L'Jarius Sneed, but that's it. You know, Dickhead, caused a fumble in the championship game. But so hopefully he can find his footing there. But I was kind of surprised, I'll be honest with you. But at the same token, once you look at the roster, it's like I'm not at the same time.
Yeah, and I will say this. I feel like, guys like Jair Alexander and Malachi Starks, for both Jalen Armour Davis and Bo Braid, I feel like the additions of those two really, solidified that we weren't keeping them because,
Yeah,
we didn't know that our Darius Washington was going to have that season-ending injury,
yeah,
back in June when he first got it. So, maybe if he doesn't have that, then maybe we don't really get Malachi Starks. We didn't know we were getting Jair Alexander, especially with the deal we got him on. So maybe if we don't get Jair, then Jalen Armour Davis still has a spot on his team. So, it just goes to show you how quickly things change in NFL, how a lot of opportunities open up, how a lot of contracts, players may take team friendly deals. So,
yeah,
all in all, I feel like this is the best, from just a Ravens fans perspective. This is a great roster for us this year, a great practice squad. I hope that, just we can stay healthy. The
yeah,
football gods cannot, strike us down with injuries again.
yeah,
It seems like everybody's going to be back for the week one practice. Back and healthy.
yep.
I still hate that ESPN Fantasy has that question mark next to Lamar. Like he's healthy. You guys can take that away. Don't be jinxing my guy like that. But all in all, this is a great roster, and I just want to say, like, I've had some time to think. We're going to get more of this until our Bills game, pregame, whatever. But the first three teams, we got no business losing to any of those teams. Like if you just look on paper, this roster is amazing, and we have no business losing to the Bills. We got no business losing to the Browns or the Lions, especially because we're going to that game. So the Ravens can't waste our money like that. But I mean, I'm just being serious. Like we have no business losing to the Bills again. With all due respect, we are better than them in every single position. Maybe besides, defensive, maybe besides defensive line, but that's slightly, or I'll say linebacker is a better comparison, but in terms of just the whole team, we should not lose to them, bro. And I'm being serious. So that's just my little quick rant right there. We need to get the job done week one and set the tone for the season. I don't want it to be like last year where we lose by a toe tap. We need to win by 2 scores because I know Lamar's ready. I know Marlowe's ready. I know the veterans are ready, and everybody else needs to be ready too. So that's just my little piece on that.
I mean, everyone, I think everyone, along with no matter if you're a player or coach, they got to be ready. I mean, this has to be the
Yeah,
season. This has to be the season,
yes,
because I mean, it doesn't have to be, but it should be,
that has to be. That has to
I
be.
would say, because I mean, we need to earn it. We don't need to just be given it,
Right.
so that's why I'm saying that it should be, it doesn't have to be, it should be,
Mm-hmm.
and we've had enough talent the last few seasons to win it all. If anything, we should be going for a three-peat right now. That's how talented the Ravens are, and that's how the talented the Ravens have been. But I mean, I'm going to continue to push, the fact that the coaching just needs to be on it this year. I'm really not in the mood for this play calling, tricky stuff, whatever in the playoffs. If you're in the 1 yard line, Derrick Henry gets it 4 times, no questions. I don't care. I mean, we have to think about the Bills game where we had the ball on like 2 yard line. We didn't even score. I mean, we scored. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, we had a field goal in that play. These are differences that we have to make, and we can't keep coming in here and doing the same thing and expecting it to work. No, we have to continue to push the pile. And I mean, for the offensive line, they gotta just be bullies. For the defensive line, they gotta. I mean, why does it take us a whole half to adjust to these games versus these elite teams? No, it shouldn't have to take that much. You should already be going into this game with the fire and the energy. And I mean this for game one to game 20. Like, meaning I hope we get to game 20.
We will.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I just need the coaching to lock in, the way they locked in at the end of the last season. I need the players to lock in. And honestly, no matter what happens in this season, just enjoy everything, because we don't know how much longer we got this. I mean, for all we know, Alexander might be gone next year. Henry could retire. We don't know any of this stuff. I mean, Lamar could say, I'm gone. I want to trade. We didn't win Super Bowl, whatever. Not saying it's going to happen, but, just enjoy it all right now. EDC said we're going all in, and this is what going all in looks like for Eric DeCosta and the Ravens. So enjoy the season. Continue to learn from your mistakes that you had last year and grow. This could be 2023, but better, in all seriousness. Like, because there was still a lot of roadblocks and things that looked unpolished that year as well, and we still won. We went 13-4. The Ravens could easily be 14-3 this year. The Ravens, in all seriousness, could go 17-0. But we
Yeah.
know, we
Yeah.
know how the Ravens are.
Yeah.
So and we play a lot of good teams, so we can't expect to beat every single good team. Sometimes the
Right.
game plan just doesn't work in your favor. Sometimes, it just you have an off game, whatever. But I'm gonna just say this: Week one is one of the most important games for me, just because to me this I was gonna sound crazy to say, but this game right here is going to determine who wins the first seed. I'm sorry, it just
Yeah.
will. And that might be crazy to say, and everyone's saying you can't win the Super Bowl in September, you can't win the division in September, you can't win the first seed in September. No, this game right here will determine who hosts the AFC Championship game between the two teams.
Yeah.
So whether
And
it's the Chiefs and
yeah.
Bills, whether it's the Ravens and Chiefs, whatever, or Ravens Bills, whoever, you need, because if you think about it, we beat the Bills last year, but there's two games in particular, the Steelers game and the Browns game, that we dropped. So I mean, we could have been that game could have been in Baltimore. We could have been 14-3. We should have been 14-3 last year. So but like I said, this game for game one, lock in. This is gonna be for the first seed. I don't give a shit that it's the first week of the season.
Yeah. And I was laughing because I do agree with you, but that's a bold statement to say, but I like stuff like that. It is, going to be much more important later on in the season.
Yeah,
And I want to add just one more thing. I feel like the Ravens mantra, for this season, or their calling call, whatever, should be in due time. It needs to be the season that we're due. We need to be due to beat the Bills, because I know we can. We need to be due to beat the Chiefs. We need to be due to get past the AFC Championship game and win the Super Bowl.
yeah,
So that's going to be my mantra for the Ravens this season, in due time, because it has to happen. It can't just be the rest of your career. You can't beat the Chiefs. You can't get back. You can't get past that game. It needs to happen. So in due time this year, you know.
exactly. We can't be like the
Yeah.
Bills, lose on 4 against them, in the
Yeah.
playoffs.
No.
No, 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 I don't want to hear any of that. They don't have the mental toughness to get through them. We have the players and the coaches and the mental toughness to go ahead and beat them. We just got to stop getting in our own way.
We do. We do. So that's all I got left. I just want to see some ball. I want to see some ball. I want to see some mistake. I don't even know if this is a word. Mistakeless ball. That's all I want to see.
Mistake free.
You know, mistake free ball. I'm making up
Yeah,
words now. That's how crazy I am just to get the season started.
yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, that's how crazy I am. I
It's
want to see
1 week,
mistake free
man.
ball.
It's 1 week. By this time next week, we'll know if the Ravens are 1-0 or 0-1, which there's no way in hell they should be 0-1. I'm sorry.
No
I get
way.
it's a home opener. I get it's in Buffalo. I don't care, man. This team to me is going to the week 1 show me how much mental toughness they have.
Right. Right. So that's all we got. That's all we got for this video. I'm fired up now. I'm angry too at the same time. But that's all we got for this video. Just recapping. The preseason, which we go undefeated, 3-0. Wrapping up our 53-man roster and practice squad. You know, Hopefully this is Super Bowl year. I believe so. Not hopefully, I believe so. So, any last thing you want to add?
Nope, I'm gonna go.
I'll go. All
Hmm.
right. Well, that's all we got for you guys today. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Comment down below, any surprises you got from the practice squad or the final 53-man roster. And also, comment down below, what are your thoughts about the Commanders game? Any special players that you notice, any special plays that you like, let us know. Also, check out our TikTok, our Instagram, our Twitter. It is official. We're going to 2 games this season. We got the Lions tickets and we got the Rams tickets, so we will be there. It's going to be TikTok content on there. Make sure you show love to Instagram. I already know Jared's cooking up some great graphics, especially for week 1. This is our Super Bowl year, so I know he's
I
determined.
gotta redo it because them files got deleted.
Well, show some love. Show some love for all the trouble he's going through to create some great graphics for you guys. So make sure you guys do that. And also check out our second channel, Casual Cinema. We're going to be seeing him soon, so we're going to have a movie review about that. So that's all we got for you guys today. We're Birds of Prey Sports, and we're out.
I'm out.